Hey everyone, a nerd named Mark here. Oh shit, never mind. Hey everyone, welcome out to episode 152 of a Nerd Named Mark podcast. It's me, it's Mark. Now this is a big episode. I have a special guest, um, author of the Terror Valley Schools Out for Never, Squall Charlson. Yay! But before I get into that cool conversation slash interview, I want to go over the normal stuff as well. What's going on? What have I been doing? So we're gonna jump into comic books. I finally got my comics. Yay! First up, and I'm gonna be working on a video. I got the Ranger Academy #1. My camera's focus is acting up. Dan Slott returned to and brought back Superior Spider-Man Returns. So I got issue 1 of that because that was a necessity. I just got the 4th issue. I think this is the 4th of the 5th one for Godzilla Here There Be Dragons, which I have been singing the praise of, and hopefully you guys have been picking it up and reading it. And then DC's killing it with their covers right now, especially their variants and this and that. I got the Blue Beetle issue #2. This is the Adrian Gutierrez and Luis Guerrero freaking variant. Like, this thing is good, and it's the thicker paper stock. Dude, Blue Beetle's killing it right now. If you haven't checked out Blue Beetle, please go check out Blue Beetle. And then I couldn't say no. I got my regular Green Lantern Dawn of DC #4 cover, but then I had to get, because we got that Godzilla vs. Kong Justice League crossover, I had to get this nice Virgin, or no, this isn't the Virgin one. Green Lantern and Godzilla on a cover together, and I'll put photos online because my camera's being stupid. So yeah, those are my comics that I got, and not a big haul. Like I said, I haven't cut back. I've actually been adding to my pull list. It was a slow 2 weeks where there wasn't really anything coming out, and then I just filmed 2 episodes of the podcast basically back to back. So in the same day, so basically there's no other comics in the other episode, which was before this one. So yeah, that's it for the comics. Now on to movies. I haven't really been watching anything new, and I think from a continuity standpoint, because this intro is being recorded after the interview was, I did watch Pet Sematari's Bloodlines. That was really good. As a big Edgar Allan Poe fan, me and my wife just started watching The Fall of the House of Usher. That's first episode got me. I was like, this is so good. It's not one of my favorite short stories from Edgar Allan Poe. I do enjoy it though, so I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out. That's really for watching stuff. I've been playing a lot of video games because obviously by the time this episode comes out, Spider-Man 2 on the PS5 will already been released. So I went through and I started the remaster version because I haven't played it since the PS4. So I just sat down in a span of a couple days. I'm very close to platinuming the Spider-Man remastered, but once I finished that story, I was like, all right, let me jump right into playing Miles Morales because I actually never played that, and I'm already like 50-something% done. So that's the main 2 I've been playing, as well as Detective Pikachu Returns on the Switch. You don't understand. I'm a huge Detective Pikachu fan. I don't even like Pikachu as a Pokemon, but between the original Detective Pikachu, which was handheld, then the movie, I even have the graphic novel thing that came out for it, as well as this game. I was like, oh, this is so good. I'm really enjoying it. It's like fun, casual, it's kind of, I like all these non-mainline, mainstream Pokemon games so much more than how the main generation ones have been lately. Sword and Shield, it was good. It was like, oh, the first time we're getting a Pokemon on the Switch, like open world. And then Scarlet and Violet was decent. I think I enjoyed Legends Arceus is probably the best out of all of them that's on the Switch for like that style of Pokemon, especially with Brilliant Diamond. I like more too. But things like Pokemon Snap, Mystery Dungeon, like all these non-main, like have been so good compared to the main gen Pokemon. And I have a podcast episode that I planned on doing about that, which won't be now because this is still spooky month. But this, my conversation with Squall Charlson is a very long one. We touch on a lot of cool things about writing, growing up in the 90s with, getting into books and movies, our love of physical media, everything under the sun when it comes to that stuff. So I don't want to take up too much time. What's going to happen is we're just going to jump right over and get right into this awesome interview. And once again, I have to thank Squall for hanging out with me and talking. And yeah, let's get right into the episode. Welcome, everyone. You probably already saw my intro where I talked about comics and whatever else I bought this week, which financial responsibilities. A guest. I don't have guests often. I have now author, actor. I've said this on Twitter. I've said this on my podcast before. I fell into talking about Toku content because I've seen your content, and I was like, oh, people are talking about you talked about Ultraman Blu-rays, and I was like, oh man, people know about this. I have the author of the first book in the Terror Valley. It's a series, right? So Terror Valley is going to be the series.
Squall it's got a number Charlson. 1 on the spine. We might do more.
I did see a pre-order for the second one, which but yeah, I didn't know if it was like we were calling Terror Valley just the series, right?
Yeah.
And the first book is called School's Out for Never. I obviously had to buy the physical one. It's a great book. I just want to say right off the bat, you captured the essence of those scholastic early, like 93 books perfectly with this.
Gotcha. Are you talking like the original Goosebumps run?
The original first Goosebump run, not the later on. We know what happened later on.
Yeah.
Not.
I mean, there are some great titles in there too, but like just that feeling you got when you got one of those originals were just so nice. They were so good. And that's kind of like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write this and bring that all together, was because, as you said, I used to do like a lot of Toku content. I used to do, YouTube, in-person events. And then we also did like during the COVID year, Let's Talk Toku with Collaborative of Shout Factory, which that was a lot of fun. And ever since then, I kind of really looked at my life of like, what do I actually want to do? What do I actually like doing? And ever since I was a kid, I wanted to write and I wanted to tell stories. Like anytime I watch a movie, anytime I like read something, especially with my wife, if we don't like it, we talk about it. And she always asks, well, how would you have done it? How would you have changed it? How would you not necessarily fix it, but like, what would you have done? And I, rattle something off and she's just like, yeah, that's it. Like she always says I'm a storyteller. So I started writing a book COVID year. And I've been kind of on and off for that. And then to take a break, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try writing something that I was very passionate about as a kid. And that, was like those creepy books, Goosebumps. We had like, the Goosebumps show, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Erie, Indiana. So a lot of that kind of like
Indiana.
Yeah.
That's how I date myself. I was like, man, I really am going closer to 40 now, aren't I?
Yeah. Oh man, everyone will be like, Are You Afraid of the Dark? You mean that new Nickelodeon show? No. Talking about the old one, the one with the intro that would scare the crap out of any kid. Like
that was like, it's funny, like irony. We are recording on Friday the 13th. They actually have a series that just started today on Disney Plus, and I was like, I just
show they got it all.
Yeah, I just finished recording an episode going over Stephen King stuff, and I had to mention my gateway to Stephen King and like H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe was Goosebumps. That was my gateway, and so I actually had like the sealed tin still for Goosebumps, and I was like talking about it, and I was like, and preparing for this, I was like, one day we'll get a tin for Terror Valley, because I even say like this does encapsulate that era where someone my age, you can enjoy the story of it, but then it kind of gives you the nostalgia taste. But then even I left a review on Amazon, and I was even like, hey, if I ever have a kid, this kid's reading it, because then maybe they'll like it, because it hits the age group, the target demographic perfectly. Was
Thank you.
that
Yeah.
your goal with Terra Valley when you wanted to write a book? Like, this is the age group I want to aim for?
Yes and no. I live in Kansas City, and when I first moved here, I had a job working in elementary schools. And anybody that knows me knows like kids and I get along. Like I talk to them like they're real people, and honestly, that's all it really is. You don't talk down to kids, and they'll respect you so much. And so this time that I was working in these schools, I got to talk and meet all different kids from, preschool all the way up, sometimes even to sixth grade in some of these schools. And just like the things that they know and they think and they talk about is just so like interesting, because what I've noticed with like adults, a lot of adults, might think those things, but will never say them. A kid, just blurts whatever they want out loud. And it's
Oh yeah,
kind of like
they
it's a
don't have
good
the
like
filter
learning moment.
yet to like.
Yeah, no filter. And so the book that I was writing originally, which I'm still working on that, but it's kind of a bigger book, it's more there's more scope to it. And it's kind of written for a higher level. And I wanted to write something that was like a movie, right? I wanted to write something that felt like a good 2-3 hour read. You're in, you're out. And the more I kind of played around with some of the ideas that I had, the more I was like, you know what? This type of genre, this type of like horror book for a child, is really non-existent. You go from picture books to like vampire eroticism for the teens, like there's not a
Yeah.
whole lot in between. And that's what I was like, you know what? That's something I'm passionate about. Let's give it a shot. And the result of that is School's Out for Never.
Yeah, I did pick up on that because, like, you do the young adult is like preteen to teen, and then
Mhm.
in that age range of like toddlers, elementary school, it's more educational books like
Yeah.
spelling and color, and there's not really just fiction, especially in this genre as well, because it's like, yes, it's
Mhm.
technically horror, but it's not in the sense of like,
Stephen
okay, this
King
is gonna
or
scare a kid. No, no. Like, and I mean, obviously, because there's a time loop in this. That's why School's Out or Never. A lot of people would say Groundhog's Day, but there's this movie that I really like that not a lot of people like called 1201.
1201. Yeah, I love 1201.
And that's what I got from it. And then that's
Mhm.
based, and I always forget the book name, and it's based off of this one book.
Replay.
Yes, Replay.
Yeah, by Tim
That
Grimwood.
book
That's
is what
my
12.
favorite book of like all time. Like I have like a signed leather copy upstairs before he passed away.
Did you
Like
know that was going to be a movie?
yeah,
And I was
and
like, they were going to
Harold
Ben
Ramis
Affleck.
was gonna make it.
Yeah,
Oh,
and they were
they're
going to
doing
Ben
a second
Affleck.
one.
Yeah, and I was like, and that's what I got from this more than anything, because yeah, Groundhog Day, Bill Murray, we get it. It's a great film,
Mhm.
but this one was like more learning from your mistakes throughout the book. And I liked it also, like you mentioned with the kids, it's not holding their hand in it. Like, it
Right.
is talking to them. You're getting a story that's not insulting their intelligence.
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of kids in fifth grade going into sixth grade can like relate to our main character with what he's thinking, whether, oh, the fear of getting called up to the front of the class to solve a problem. I hate that. That's even I was, or that's the girl you kind of like, but you haven't talked to her all school year. It's the last day before summer, or,
You're sitting in the bathroom and you hear like a monster out
yes,
the hallway. Like, yeah,
yes.
we've all been
And
there.
the gym coach, the gym teacher slash coach, I
Coach
had
G.
a coach like that. Yeah, Coach G. I actually coached soccer in that age range for 4 years when I was after my surgery and before I played soccer in college and everything.
Mhm.
I was, I remember kids kind of being like, "Oh God, there's Coach Mark," and I'm like, "Dude, I'm nice. Don't like. I'm just gonna make you run a lot. That's all."
Yeah. Oh, it was soccer, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mile before, mile after. I was in soccer. Ugh.
yeah, I did that for 15 years. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
so I guess I'll go in like a chronological order. So pandemic's happening. You're like, hey, you got this bigger book you want to write. and then you decide Terror Valley. How'd the name come to you? Because it's a good name, and I'm surprised this name hasn't been used as a series.
I'll say how I usually go about something like this, whether it was like when I was in college doing like movies or like writing something or doing even YouTube videos, is a simple Google search will do you wonders. Because if you have a great idea, if you have a list of 10 great names, if you search that and like each one of them come up with something that's like big, or even if you haven't heard of it, you're on the right track. And sometimes it's just taking like a couple words that you really like and throwing it together. And one of the book series that I didn't personally read, but I knew about them, was like the Valley High series when I was really
Oh,
young.
yeah.
And it always kind of like, paralleled to like the Fear Street sort of books at the time. I was like, well, what if you kind of put those together and you get Terror Valley? And I was, I really liked the word terror. And because I think, a lot of kids may not even know what that word is around that age. And so terror, like you could say like Scared Valley or whatever, and they'll get it.
Yeah.
But I think it'll become synonymous with what it actually is, maybe even before they fully know what that word is. And yeah, I just kind of was spitballing some stuff together, and I was like, I really like that. And so
Yeah,
I
it
made
worked.
I made the logo was my next step, because I was like, oh, I really like that. And I basically made my own custom font. So like the R's are like different shapes, like the L's are different shapes, just because I wanted it to look unique. I didn't want it to look like, someone just typed it out. I wanted it to look iconic, and whatever color you can slap it on, it'll look good. So maybe that red will change color, but
I will let everyone know who's listening or watching. Making your own font is not easy.
no.
Because I launched a merch line earlier this year, and all the fonts I have on any of my designs is actually a custom font. Because one, I don't want to get licensing or trademark issues,
Right.
and I had to teach myself how to do this. And I was like, that's a process in itself.
Mhm.
So that's actually really cool that you were like, hey, let me make my own font. And it kind of gives you your own like spin on it and your own like taste to it, because it's easy to like
Yeah,
look up other fonts.
you can kind of, make it exactly how you picture it. And that's like a big thing for me, like graphic design background. We would make logos and we would just sit there and sketch something out, 10, 20 different times. And being able to find a font that's close, opening it up in InDesign, and then just like tweaking the hell out of it for like 3 days. It's great.
I'm still getting used to the technology of sketching. I still have my sketchbook, and then I actually had to go and buy like a printer with a scanner so I can scan it into the computer, and then I would go over in Photoshop and do another layer to do the lines over it, because I was just like, I can't create this on a computer. Like there's something like nice about just drawing on paper and designing stuff, and I
It's
can't
kind of like
replicate it
there's
with
something
computers.
nice about having a physical copy rather than, ebook.
Yeah. So speaking of, and that's a good question too. So you went through Amazon Direct Publishing and doing ebook. So what's the process of that? Because like I've looked at it before of like, oh, how do these like? Did you know you were gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna get a physical book? Because it's kind of hard to find a publisher nowadays.
Yes and
like,
no. The problem is that a lot of publishers don't make a lot of money right now. And so you'll either make no money and they're going to make everything off of you, which is kind of, what they've always done. But like,
yeah,
um, it's just really hard. Like the quality and everything that comes out of it, like the Scholastics, the Penguin House, like all of them, like keep upping their prices. And that was something that I would be really interested in doing, actually, because one of the things that Terror Valley sort of, going back a little bit, that I wanted to do was I realized that Goosebumps was reaching its 30th anniversary. And I looked up Bob online and it said that he was 80 years old. And I was just like, there is no way that man is still, writing a book a month, which they've changed the schedule a little bit. But
yeah,
back in the day, like they would make a Goosebumps a month, like every month was a new book you get in the mail. And I was like, there has to be ghostwriters. And so that was kind of like, how do I become a ghostwriter? How can I like secretly write one of these books and like kind of get my, foot in the door? And I try to like pitch them this idea of like R.L. Stine presents Goosebumps, and then you have the actual author who does this book, and you can like have like, a revolving door of different people, and just having such a big brand and having so many eyes on it that like you could read one story and absolutely love it, and you could read another one and be like, oh, they would be really good if they wrote like sci-fi, like it would kind of be like uh an audition almost for
Or
like
yeah,
a
almost like
bunch
a
of
showcase, like showcase these up and
yeah.
coming writers, get more eyes on their work. That's actually a good idea.
I didn't hear back, so
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, they must know like ideas then, because it's always that's a good way to like also get someone's foot in the door of how like the inner workings of getting your book published and writing and having like an editor be like, hey, this will work. So it's kind of like learning as well as showcase. So it's like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and you would keep Bob's legacy going too.
Yeah.
Like this could foreseeably go on into the future, who knows how long, and you would still have people that owe everything to that Goosebumps legacy because they probably grew up reading these books and now
Oh yeah.
they get to write their own. But yeah, Amazon was something that I had seen a lot of other people do, and no offense to them, I saw them do it very poorly. And so I looked into how do you do that? And because I'm sort of a perfectionist and I like to get everything locked down and make everything look good. And so I just started testing. Like, if you order this book today, this is maybe the 20th revision of this. And
Oh wow.
by that I mean I would submit, the cover, which I designed all myself. The formatting inside is all done by me as well. And I would send that off to Amazon. And once it was processed, I would order a proof copy. And those proof copies would come with like a little banner around. I have one left, I think, in the other room because I've just given away all the other ones because I'm like, here you go. Here's one
Yeah,
that I needed
proof.
to change something on. Like even this, the one that you have, Mark, is not the final one.
Jeez.
Literally
Like
forgot something on the front. And so
it is funny because like I'm not the creator, obviously. But like I'm just the reader and the fan. I didn't even notice any imperfections with anything, like and all the different like this you said like how you stylized or not stylized it. The formatting of it was really good. I like quick chapters like that too, just from the writing standpoint. That made it really easy. But I am the same way. I have almost half a dresser drawer full of all my test samples of my t-shirts and my hoodies where I'm like, okay, it's slightly off here, or it's not there. The color didn't go right. I got to go back and get a better Pantone color and this and that. And it's like, when she was like, why do you have so much? Like, I cannot put this out if it's not 100% what I want it to be. I will delay it. Or I'll scrap it if I can't get it to work either.
Right. I'm very much the same.
It's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because it's a bad thing because you kind of want the stuff to release like in a time frame that you want it to, but at the same time, at least when it does come out, it's what you want it to be, and you're satisfied and happy with the product. Because like I said, like my wife enjoyed it. I was like, I read it digitally and literally ordered the physical copy right when I was done, and so I gotta, because it's an easy pickup read. I don't know. You said it was like, something you could read in 2 or 3 hours. It is a nice, easy to digest, quick read, but it doesn't go by fast. How long, from a writing standpoint of the story, from first draft to your final, okay, this is good, I like where this is, we can publish it. How long did that take?
So it was kind of a joke at first, and then I sat down and wrote it. And I would say by the first draft, when I was done, took about 2 weeks from start to finish. And a lot of that was me getting close to the end, but not really fully sure how to get there. Because the way that I do any sort of writing is I think of like the wide strokes first, obviously, like what's the story, who might be the characters, but ultimately, like, what am I trying to say with the story? Like, how do I want to end it ultimately? Right. And I will bullet point from A to B, literally what I think will happen. And most of the time, when I force myself to do that, I'll be able to figure out things that I've never thought about, or I'll hit something that I'm like, wait a minute, okay, so he does this, then how will she, do that? And those bullet points literally become the chapters. And I just change that into like the chapter title so that I know, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. Beat change. Okay, we're in another chapter. And I had gotten to a point where I'm trying to keep this spoiler free, but a big twist happens, and it basically is just a roller coaster ride until the very end. And I just did not know what I was going to do in there. And that, like, I kept like going back and revising, and it wasn't until I literally sat down one day that I was off work and just read through everything that I had, and then just forced myself to finish it. And I was just like introducing characters that I was like, oh wow, I guess they're doing that. I had no idea. And just kind of throwing them in left and right and sort of holding on myself to finish it. But that whole process was about ultimately a month, but 2 weeks really of writing within that. And luckily, my wife is an editor, and so she was all over this, and she's like, I wanna edit it. I wanna, like, go over your book and make sure that it looks great. So I handed it off to her in like less than 2 or 3 days. She had it done, and I was able to start formatting it for ebook and that.
That's a crazy turnaround time. But I get it too, like with the whole like, all right, forcing yourself to finish it. You did mention your wife. I do believe there is. Well, we actually didn't even talk fully about the plot of the book,
I guess, yeah.
because I'm a professional. um, so, do you want to go ahead and give everyone the overview? What is School's Out for Never? Because obviously, for those of you listening, we did mention Groundhog Day and replay. So obviously, there's a time loop involved, which is tricky to navigate, which we'll get into afterwards. But yeah, let us tell everyone what the story is about.
So it's about a main character. His name is Freddie. He's 11 years old, last day of 5th grade. And for most people, that's the last day of their elementary school. And he is so excited for summer. His friends, they're going to stay up all night. They're going to go to the pool, just hanging out, totally soaking it up before middle school. Of course, no homework. But the day as it finishes restarts over and over again. And like, he can't even escape the school. He notices the teachers are getting meaner and meaner. Things are getting harder. And there might be something even sinister lying in wait for young Freddie. And that School's Out for Never.
I'm glad you got to describe it, because I was like, how do I describe this without spoiling anything? And you described it perfectly. Also, before we get into it, you did a really cool, and I don't know if anyone notices it, you put like a video out on the Terror Valley YouTube channel and and I knew I kind of saw some of the inspiration from that, because anyone who was a child of the 90s, that's the old school style. Arl Stein used to do the Goosebumps, and I loved that you went with that, and it was a great way to describe the book. And I was like, man, like, there's something grassroots organic for promoting doing something like that. But the story, like, that's
I'm coming for your job, Bob.
Yeah, right. It's like, eventually we'll have Squall Charlson presents Terror Valley. It's like, you guys should have took that idea.
Yeah, sorry, it's my
oh well, it happens. I do like the way you worded it, because I was like, because there's a lot of things in between. There's a lot of nods to that 5th grade. I don't know if it's because how my school was, because I grew up in a small farm town. Elementary school for us was like, I think 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So we went like kindergarten through 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Then it was junior high, 7th, 8th. So for me, I was like, oh man, did I really go to a new school? So I had to go back and like wrap my own brain about when I was in school. I was like, no, wait, I went at 6th grade. But I do like that whole, one of the elements of this was that unsurety of like, what is he going to do? Because he's going to a new school.
Yeah, it's transitional period. Everyone knows about that.
And because you don't know what you wanted, and like you're leaving your favorite teachers, the art teacher,
Mhm.
and there's so many hiding out in the nurse's office. Like, can you do that? And then when you go out of elementary school, like there were so many of those. I hate the word tropes.
I tried.
Yeah, I could never get out of it. They're just like, oh, you have a headache. Here's water. Lay down. 10 minutes, you're out. Like there's a revolving door. No one. You hit a lot of. I hate using the word tropes, but it's really the only word to describe it. You had so much fit in here, but it didn't feel like it was bloated with the story because you had art teacher, you had the math teacher, you had the nurse, the lunchroom ladies, you had the coach G, the gym teacher. There were so many things. I'm trying to figure out how to
Principal.
word this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really nice to because there's every teacher's different for everybody,
Mhm.
and I kind of enjoyed Freddie's like changing character throughout it. Like I don't want to spoil anything. I'm trying not to spoil anything. If you guys are like paying attention to my jumbling of words, I like the message of where it's less of how to get out of the loop, or when you find out that moment of what's going to stop the loop, which is kind of the self discovery. Like you say, there's so many things you're unsure of going to a new school. Who are you going to be? What path? Because a lot of people really think it's like high school, like the last 4 years of high school. It's like, no, really, realistically, it's when you're 10 or 11 when you start to
Yeah.
really figure out what you like, because you have a small window from when you're 11 to like 14 before you get to pick your own classes and figure out
Mhm.
where you want to go. So I kind of really enjoyed the message of this was like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. That discovery, all of a span of 24 hours over and over again. And not even 24 hours. Like, I don't even know how long school lasts anymore. It's been
It's
decades since
about
I've
like
been to school.
6 to 7 hours.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah,
That's a long
it's
time.
literally just a job for kids.
Yeah. How did you find that balance of that many characters while fitting in such a like important message that wasn't like it wasn't shoved down our throats like a lot of messages are in books and stuff? Like it was subtle. It wasn't a throwaway line, but it was just like or anything like that. It was just like, oh, figuring out what I want to be. It's like that's a good message to kind of sneak in there amongst everything else going on.
I knew how, like, ultimately Freddy was going to, spoiler, escape the loop. We can't just have a kid, living
Yeah.
in a loop forever. Um, so there is a way out of the loop, and what Freddy has to go through, both internally and externally, are very, very drastically, huge things. And I think the easiest solution is, or the simplest answer is always the easiest solution. And I think that's kind of like one of the main principles that I wanted to, move forward with this was, it's a transitional period. Not everybody has a chance to really reflect on what they want to do with life, what they want to do with whatever time that they have on this planet. And so that's kind of like a big driving force for a lot of what goes on is just how Freddie and other people interpret that time, whether as a curse or a gift. And yeah, I honestly like the whole ending kind of wrap up. I had like in the back of my head, and like I said, it wasn't until I just kind of like started mad typing that it all sort of came out, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that works. The funny thing is, like when you write something like this, you go back and you revise. And so we have Freddie restarting in his homeroom classroom over and over again. And every time I would write that, I would go back and copy it and then change things up, like I would, change wording or I, float it around. I'd want to make it kind of like sound like it's looping to the reader as well, but then kind of introduce something new or change it up. And every time I went back to copy it, I would read through and I would be like, oh, I'm going to change this. And then I'd have to go back and change every other one over and over and over again. And so I was really relieved by the time I got to the end. And I was just like, all right, I don't have to, I can literally, I don't have to focus on any of that. I can just write whatever I want and sort of wrap it up that way, which was relieving. I'll say that.
And it was a good ending. I would say
Thank
that
you.
it was it wasn't like the cheesy happy, and it was just it was a happy. Obviously, you got out of the loop, but it was just one of those ones like, all right, you're kind of just like, you want to be like, if you was a real kid, you'd be like, good job, kid. Like, you know, you're proud of you. You did it. You know, now go forth and stuff and things and go to the pool and enjoy it.
Yeah, there's so much that went into that, and I like that you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because like I had an alternative ending, and I kind of left it in there, and it's sort of I've had like some people interpret it as a happy ending, and some people interpret it as an ominous ending. Um, and I've had one person that actually reached out to me. They just got it like a week ago, because it came out a week ago, and they read it real quick, and they said, was this did this happen? What am I reading in between the lines? And I was like, no, that you're absolutely right. And so I feel good that multiple people are feeling mixed things about,
Yeah.
the end.
And it's always good, you know, to get everyone's gonna feel a certain good, bad, like everyone's gonna feel a certain way of reading this. Like my wife was just like, oh, this is kind of cute at first. Then she started getting into like the middle section of it, and she's like,
Mhm.
oh, she's like, I'm like, yeah, keep reading. I was like, we can discuss this after, because me and my wife do the same thing. Like when we watch movies, this and that, we also like break them down and like, yeah, I'd change everything about this. Like, especially with horror films, because that's my main thing. And I'm like, I hate this. Like, why did they do that? Let's see. What was I going to ask about the book? I didn't
It's
write any
funny.
questions down.
The
No,
the
me.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
go
I
ahead.
won't say one more thing. The original idea for this actually stemmed from the lunchroom scene. So it's really cool that Marcelo Biot, who did the cover art for this, included the lunch stuff, because I only gave him a
Yeah,
blur of what the story was going to be about, and I gave him, I think, like the first chapter, maybe the first two chapters, and he came back with this, and I was floored, because I originally, and I had never told him this, the title of this book, it was going to be completely different, was going to be called Cult of the Lunch Ladies, and I'm saving that maybe for another time.
yeah. I was gonna say, I was like, I could see, especially for one story element that is consistent throughout it, that would, and it'd be a nice misdirection too, as well,
Mhm.
to kind of like, oh, this is the title of it. Place your focus over here. Don't look at what's over. I did like the cover. I like the bell, because that is my
Mhm.
autofocus is a key element of the story. So I like that was like, I like the car and the color choices too. Like the artwork is really good. That's one of the things I was like, man, this is a good, like, because the cover is going to draw someone in 100%.
Of
Like
course.
when
I
I
mean,
look at a book, that's the first thing I'm
everyone
looking at.
judges it by the cover, let's be
Yes,
honest.
exactly. Everyone says don't, but it's like I do. And there'd be a lot of books
Mhm.
that I would have never gotten into if I never judged them by their cover.
Yeah,
And
Marcelo and I really talked about like the color and making the vibrance pop, and very giving it kind of like that 90s pastel look. Because I
yes,
told him I wanted to do a single color wrap that complemented whatever main color he did here. So he came back with like this purplish pink, and I was like, ooh, this kind of like lime vibrant green works really nice with it. And it's just been a
especially with
fun
the,
collaborative
yeah,
project.
especially with the red lettering, it makes it stand out more. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's definitely eye catching. And I was like, that's good. Uh, this, when it comes to different types of stories, especially with thrillers, horrors, this and that,
Mhm.
anything that has to do with time is very difficult. Whether it's a time loop, time travel, multiverse stuff. I always say, I love Doctor Who, big Doctor Who fan, but I
Oh,
feel like, oh, of
look
course,
what I opened today.
I'm avoiding that because we want
Yeah.
to move. So I'm like, no, I've already like, I cut out, like, I'm like, not gonna do it. I want to.
Oh, look how
Yeah,
cool these cards are. An
I
unearthly
know.
child.
As I go and add to cart after we're done with this. Because I'm in like that minority where I'm like, if multiverse and like time, I always feel like sometimes I feel like it could be used as, oh, you wrote yourself into a corner. Multiverse,
Yeah.
time travel. Let's
Well,
get. So it's always a tough navigating time. Was that like your first choice to do something with a time loop? Because I feel like that is just reaching for like one of the more difficult, because you're now getting out of, not out of terror, but like the subgenre. You're going into a more of like a sci-fi as well.
mhm.
And it could be
That's
easy to lose that.
I think that was like the first thing I wanted to do was make 3 of these books and just kind of gauge the reception on that. But instead of just doing like purely scary, 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 like you said, I wanted to do a subgenre. And so time travel has always been a fun, interest of mine. I grew up like on Back to the Future. Um, like time stuff has always been like in the back of my brain. So this kind of felt like, like old habit already at this point. Um, another one of the first 3 I'm going to do is more like action horror, and then another one I'm going to do is like just straight up like camp time summer horror. So I definitely wanted to work on this one first because I feel like if I slowly crank up the scary, it'll be more unexpected. Like there's
Yeah.
some things in the second book even that I was reading to a coworker of mine because she read the book right away and she wants to know more every time I talk to her. And I read her the first chapter and she was just like, okay, then what happens? And so I was like, well, I know you told me that this book didn't really scare you too much. And so I read her a passage from like in a later chapter and she said, okay, you can't tell me stuff like that because I do live on a top floor, which is, part of what I was reading. And I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. It's like,
That's a
all
good
right,
thing.
cool.
Good thing I'm on the first floor now. No, that's the thing.
Worse.
For me, I don't read like stuff like this. Like I don't read like the horror to be scared. I'm more of a fan of the tension, the atmosphere that's
Same.
built. That's why I love horror films. Like, yeah, there's all the subgenres. Like, I used to be a gore hound, so like Hostel, Saw. But then there's times where I'm like, man, I want give me a nice slow burn. Let me go back and watch something from like the 1930s or 40s when there were no jump scares. It was all dialogue and the music to just set it. So for me, I like stuff like this because it's like the theme, the atmosphere, like stuff like that is what's gonna like that tension. So if
Mhm.
you're, and it's smart for you to actually like you said, you're cranking it up a bit. And I'm like, okay, I was like, I could see how, and you want to change it up too. You can't have the
Mhm.
same format, the same style every time because
Exactly.
people get bored with that,
And
especially
something might appeal to
nowadays.
somebody that might not, the other thing. But if you get 2 people that like 2 drastically different things and they can both agree on this one thing that does both of them, that's a win, right?
Yeah. Like for like the horror genre, my wife, she's very mainstream horror. So she'll be like, oh, we can watch the Conjuring films. We can watch Saw and Scream. And I'm like, okay, have you seen Cannibal Holocaust? And she's like, what's
Oh,
that? And I'm like, oh, it's this found footage film. And she's like, you and the video camera movies. And I'm like, they're found footage and
yeah.
they're amazing. And she's like, I don't want to
Sometimes.
watch anymore. And I'm like, so there's like a genre for everybody. And,
Mhm.
it's navigating, like you said, this one's the sci-fi subgenre. You're going to have a more action one, which I'm curious about more of. And then you have to have the camp style like book. I feel like that's just a staple
Mhm.
that I think everybody can enjoy that. Like
Mhm.
I don't think anyone doesn't like a good like thriller or horror that has to do with a camp. Like
What if I told you that I'm gonna merge that camp time story with a horror movie, like a production? Yeah.
a production. Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay.
I'm not gonna say too much. I'll
No,
just give
no,
you
don't say too much. Don't say too much because like I'm the type where I overthink things, and you'll get a DM from me tomorrow. Like, what do you
yeah.
mean? And I would. That's it. Just one question. Like, what do you mean? And it's like, oh, he's talking about that again. It's like, oh,
Yeah, because the
but
next
yeah,
one I'm working on is called You're Not My Sensei, and that one's very much like karate focused, but then make it scary too, right?
what's
And then the one after that, I don't have a title for it yet, but it's about this boy who loves these horror movies, and during his winter break, he wins the role for a walk-on in the next movie that they're filming. Only problem is he can't meet the killer, and no one else has either. Yeah, could be good.
That's I like that. That's because I was actually going to bring up the second book as well. Because if for those of you, we've been talking for a bit now. Have you said on Amazon, physical release of the book is available, digital for Kindle. The second book did show up as a pre-order. I noticed that when I was going to buy the physical one, I was like, oh, let me just pre-order this just because it alerts. Because I forgot, I thought it was coming out on the 6th of October, but I was about to go to bed. I go to work really early. I'm here on the West Coast, and I just happened to charge my Kindle up, and I got the alert. Oh, the book's now ready, and I'm like, no, but it's the 5th. Like, no, it's too early. Like, and I was like, I gotta go to bed. So like, I read a couple chapters. I was like, I guess I'll go to bed. But I did see the second book. Not my sense. I was like, okay, because we always get in that genre. It's usually track and field that for especially for kids books, like going back to like Goosebumps, things like that. It was always something like track and field related. That was the athletic thing that was put in because the trope is they're running too much, isn't that? Which is a fun trope. I enjoy that trope, running a lot. So when I saw Sensei, I was like, that's gotta be martial arts. That's like, and I was like, that is a nice kind of action to pull in there. And I assume that's coming out at the end of the year. I believe it said,
yes,
right?
December 19th, tentatively.
It's a good time. And that's actually, so 2 books in 1 year. That is in a span of 3 months as well being released.
Yeah. Well, and that's really what I wanted to do was I was going to do one a month. And then my wife was like, why don't you do every other month? And I was like, yeah, that sounds a little easier, a little more doable.
Yeah. Especially for time. I mean, earlier on in the episode, you did say, how does R.L. Stine write one a month? And now you're just sitting there like, well, I could do that. I mean, 2 weeks to get the.
I could, honestly, like if it paid the bills and I didn't have to go to work.
Yeah.
Done deal.
That's like, too, is like obviously working and doing this, like, because this is obviously, I would assume, a passion project. That's actually a lot of work for those who get to do their fun passion stuff full time for their career. More power to you. Those of us who have to work the salary man jobs and then balance also well, me last year, you this year, being a newlywed as well, which congratulations. That's the balance of everything. Yeah, like she gets mad when I don't wear mine in my videos, and I'm like, well, sometimes if I don't leave the house, it's like in the box, it's right here, it's just I don't.
Yeah,
it's a reflex sometimes where I know I'm leaving, I'm like, oh, my ring's not on. And oh man, so this I'm trying to think I don't want to spoil anything book. I do like
hard. There's so much to talk about.
I know it is funny, there's so much to talk about, but it's not like a huge novel. And that's when you know, like, if you can have a long discussion about something so like short, it's short in page numbers, but not in content.
Longer than the time to read it. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. I do enjoy like how easy it was to read, but it wasn't that like, because I still go back and read stuff. Like I said, a gateway. So obviously we did talk about, the Goosebumps, this and that. Was that a gateway for you into other like horror and this and that? Because I feel like that's.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, I had them, and I read a handful of them. And by I had them, I mean like I collected the Goosebumps. Like I would go to garage sales. I would go, I had them delivered to my house monthly, but I never really like read them. Like I know a lot of people would like get the new one and immediately tear through it. I was very selective about what I read. And that was mainly because my parents, when I was really young, made me a deal that if I read a book and finished it, they would get me a new one. So I could keep reading and kind of instill that love in reading, which I think is great if you can afford to do something like that. I don't know about today with like the prices that they want for some things, but like back then when books were like less than $5, you get like a mass bound. Like I was off to the races. And they didn't really consider Goosebumps. They wanted me to read higher brow stuff, stuff that was beyond,
Yeah.
um, which is kind of weird because I was in like fifth and sixth grade and I was reading Stephen King. But you
Yep.
know, it really was a gateway into just like the enjoyment that you can get out of it and like the discussion pieces, because a lot of people like moths to a flame are really attracted to things that scare them or things that make them feel a certain way. And it's either that or Harry Potter. And I'd rather talk about
Yeah.
Goosebumps back then. And yeah, it was just the perfect timing, perfect mixture. And it's just such a shame that we have like almost none of that. It's non-existent. Like you look at Goosebumps, like pre-Goosebumps, like you had all these teen series. You had Christopher Pike coming out with a book every, other month that were fantastic. You had, the Fear Street series. You had just all these other like authors coming out of the woodwork to offer up a fun, scary story that you just don't get anymore. Like
No.
it's all gone. I don't know what's up.
Yeah. That's why even in my review I said this is like a lost genre,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't pinpoint where it kind of phased out, but I feel like in the last couple of years, from a movie standpoint, horror has really become mainstream again. So I feel like there might be a resurgence of that, because I'm the same way. When I was 12, 13, I was already like reading novella series from Stephen King. I was
Mm-hmm.
reading Edgar Allan Poe because I was 5 or 6 when Goosebumps started. So I was already reading, and I was, filling out my little scholastic thing. My parents more of the line of like, okay, if you want something, you have to earn it. So I would work around the farm and this and that. And I'd be like, all right. And then I'd sit there with my like 350. I'm like, all right, I can get a Goosebumps and then this cool Power Rangers coloring book. Yeah, I did
Yeah.
it. That's my monthly treat. And then later on it evolved into, let me get this works of short stories from Stephen King. Oh, there's a whole Cambodium of just Edgar Allan Poe. I'm sold. And I never realized most of his stuff was poetry stuff as well. So then it like opened my door, and I'm like 12 and looking at the summer reading list, and I'm like, I don't like this. I was like, I'm going to read Carrie, or I'm going to
Yeah.
read it. I'm not going to, I was like, and I was kind of a little bit older. So Harry Potter, when it first came out, wasn't really, I was like, oh, Harry Potter or Stephen King's Under the Dome or Dreamcatcher. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get
Mhm.
Dreamcatcher instead, because this is like 600 pages. I'd rather read this than Wizards. Wizards are cool, but I bet you it's not scary in there.
Yeah.
So it's like, it, and that's why I was like, there's no transition from that, like something like Terror Valley. For a while there's no transition. Like, how do you get kids, because horror isn't this swear word that it became
Mhm.
for a while. It's like I said, so many subgenres, and it's horror can be all ages if done right. Like I tell everyone, my favorite movie, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, kids can watch that. Okay, that's not even remote. That is so campy. It's like, what's the worst thing? Oh, they turn into cotton candy cocoons. Like
Mhm.
that's wonky. Whereas, now, like with Terror Valleys,
Picture
with
Valley.
Goosebumps, it's like there's no way to really, you can't sit there like a 7-year-old be like, hey, we're gonna go watch Scream 4.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, I mean, that's the biggest problem right now is like you have such like all this streaming options out there. You can literally put on any movie and without like proper parental controls, without, like supervision, those kids are watching whatever they want. Like MCU movies are PG-13, but I can tell you, like every time I've ever gone to one of those, there's a kid that's like five
oh,
or
there's,
six, and
yeah,
I'm like, there's some stuff in there, might go over their head, but they might understand it, and it might be a little bit out of their range. But the thing is that they're attracted to that. They want to go and see those scary movies. They want to engage in something similar to that. And so what I hope is that Terror Valley is something that they can look at as this is my own. Just like mom and dad have their movies that they go and
yeah,
watch, they can't touch this. This is mine. This is what's going to scare the bejesus out of me and keep me up all night. Um, once we get going a little bit more.
yeah. No, I get that completely, because that's how it used to be. My parents would be like, hey, we're watching our, like, you can watch your shows in the morning, record them on the VCR, or it'd be like, hey, it's Friday night, I want to watch Snick. Give me, all that. Are You Afraid of the Dark? And let me watch those. And then,
Yeah.
later on they go to sleep, or my dad was deployed and my mom would work overnight at the hospital. I'd go to my aunt's and she'd be like, "Oh, what do you want?" We're like, "Oh, well, my show's already over." She's like, "Cool, we're gonna watch Tales from the Crypt." And I'm like 8 years old, like, "Yeah, let's do this." Like,
Going from
it's
0 to 60.
yeah, it's like, but I already was like reading Goosebumps. So I already had like, and I was always told this is fiction. Don't worry, like it can't hurt. So I was like, I already, it still didn't really age to be like, all right, this isn't real. These things
Mhm.
aren't going to get. Did it change after the fact when it's like midnight and I'm trying to go to sleep? No, I was still just like crap. Like the Crypt Keeper is going to pop out of my closet and tell me a story, and it's going
Yeah.
to be ridiculous and gory. Or Elvira might be my babysitter one day, which sadly never happened.
We've all been there.
Yeah, but yeah, I do like that because I could see like kids reading this because they need their own like niche within the genre. That's like
Yeah.
the main thing. And I wouldn't, no, I'm biased. I was like, I wouldn't give a kid, a Stephen King novel. Then I'm like, well, I probably would just because I'm like,
Mhm.
this is good. It's a lot of pages, but it is nice that now, like I even said, this is really good. It is something that I could easily see being like on a reading list because it's not bad from a standpoint of like the content for it's hitting the age demographic perfectly. It's not out of their age range where it's like some of the more books that I've read, even I'm just like, all right, this is supposed to be like 13 and up, and I'm like, I don't even think a 13-year-old should read this.
Yeah.
Like there's some graphic stuff in there and some spicy stuff that should not be happening in Twilight. Even, I mean, look at it. That's
Right.
what I think of. That's young adult, and I'm like, you guys are taking the word adult out of young adult too literal for this.
No, I
Um,
agree. Like there's just a need for something that is more PG than maybe it alludes to. Like it's not cool to be PG, but if you can make something that is cool on its own that you don't realize is PG, you can do a lot within that.
yeah, and I think also for older people my age range reading books like this, like the word I think of is wholesome because it's a nice coming of age story, so to speak. And I was like, okay, this is good. I could see the tension, but at the end of the day, it's still like good. Like I I don't think there's any person I could be like, oh, this might not be for you.
Mhm.
From a age standpoint, from a genre standpoint, it's like it just teeters on the line enough for where it's not like campy and cheesy because I like campy. I use campy as like a positive term. I know some
Yeah.
people don't, or cheesy. I like cheesy. Like, and I know, so it's like all the time I try and use like those adjectives. I'm like, well, the majority of people think campy and cheesy are bad, whereas I'm like, no, that's good. Wholesome's good. Fun is
Yeah, yeah,
good
yeah.
because it is
Agree.
it is a lot of fun to read. Because one, I like you didn't name the chapters. That
You want me to
was really
name them?
like, some people have chapter one, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Like, so I like that it was just one, two, and the chapters
Mhm.
were like easy to read. And it was almost like some of the chapters were a full reset. Other ones it ended really quick where it's like tension and it's like, oh, turn the page. Here's the next one. Yay, continues. Um, Formatting it because you said you wanted it formatted a certain way. Did you want to do a high chapter count? Because I believe there's for the amount of there's a
43?
good amount of chapters, but some are like 1 or 2 pages.
Uh-huh.
Others are 3 or 4. How did the format like? Was it just pacing for the story? Okay, this is a break. This is a break.
A lot of like my prior experience when it came to writing, because I went from I want to be an author as a kid to, oh, I really like movies. Oh, you're telling me I can go and write a movie? Cool. A lot of that screenplay. And so if you work with like specific people, specific directors, they are always talking, especially when it comes to like a story standpoint, of what are the beat changes. And for anybody who doesn't know, a beat change is like when, let's say, you're walking through the park. Beat change would be a car on fire comes ripping through, right? Like it's something that plucks you out of where you are and then puts you on a different path. And every time I reached one of those beat points, I was like, all right, that's the end of the chapter. And I didn't realize until I'd finished that I was like, oh, I have over 40 of these. That's fine, because when I remember when I was young, when I read like Harry Potter 4, like one of the bigger ones,
Oh,
I
yeah.
felt so accomplished, and I strutted around the school, 3rd grade. I was like, oh yeah. I think that with how small this is, it's a pretty quick read, but when you can say, yeah, I read all 43 of these chapters, that's going to make you feel good, makes
Yeah.
you feel like you did something more than maybe what you did. Um, yeah, that's really all it was just like, where do I feel like a natural, like, commercial break, would come in, or,
Yeah.
the moment of, and then you have to turn the page, which I don't
Yeah.
remember
Which
who said it,
happened.
but I don't remember
So
who.
that happened a few times I was reading it where I was like, oh, nope, got to go to the next one real quick.
Yep. And it was funny because, like, when I first formatted it, some of the paragraphs fall nicely, like where you would expect them. But I remember, like, on like the first one, like the first proof I got back, there were a few that were just like one sentence at the top, and I was like, oh, I got
Oh,
that look.
yeah. Like, that's good, Drake. Let's change the spacing, maybe tweak some words in there. It's like, yeah, that would,
Because I played
the
around with doing
OCD
even
kicks
a
in.
hardcover and like going from like the font size of what I feel is good and not too big, because a lot of kid books will have bigger fonts.
Oh,
So then
yeah. That's,
they can write less.
I, I have an issue with large font. I'm like, listen, I know I wear glasses, and if I take my glasses off, I can't see anything around me, but larger font, it just feel like it does come across as okay, they're just trying to fill a page. Especially
Yeah,
when they do
or
like the 2.5 spacing instead of like the normal 1 or 1.5. I'm like, that's some interesting, and a lot of modern books do that a lot, I've noticed.
mhm.
And
Well,
I was like,
Stephen
man,
King did it with like the Mr. Mercedes. I was so surprised. Like the first Mr. Mercedes, that's a book. That's great.
yeah,
That's a novel through and through. And then you get to the second one, Finders Keepers, and you open it up, and it's like suddenly the font is like 5 points bigger. And I'm like,
yeah. And
whoa, come
I was
on,
like,
you
okay,
could
you're gonna milk
have pages.
100 pages out of this, I guess. I don't think it was Doctor Sleep that did. There was another book in recent years that happened. And
Mhm.
I remember I picked it up and I was like, man, this is big font and spacing. I was like, you doubled down on it. I was like, damn.
Or they do the triple sin where they preview the next book that's like 20 of the pages at the end of it. So your
Yeah.
real story is only 100 pages, but if you like watered it down, it's really 60.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you're fluffing the page count. I kind of liked that you did, because we knew um you did actually announce the next book at the last page, but it was just logo, this and that. And I was like, I like that. And especially when it said the next book in the series, that made me really happy because I didn't know there was more yet, because I
Oh,
didn't
cool.
see the Amazon. And I was like, okay, because it's tough to kind of because you're putting yourself out there, really.
Mhm.
Like, I say anything artistic, whether it's painting, writing, a film, anything, you're kind of wearing your heart on your sleeve, and you're putting yourself out there to basically be judged by everybody. But to know you already were like, I was like, oh, next book. I was like, good. So we're getting more for those of us, because I haven't really checked other reviews, just that, because
Well,
I try not to get my opinion of things swayed. So I was
yeah.
like, isolate myself, read it.
It's funny you say that because I posted this on the Goosebumps Reddit, because I frequent on there every now and then, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, talking and showing off some of my own stuff. And so I posted the book, and I was like, hey, like, here's like Goosebumps is one of the reasons why I wanted to become an author. Here's my book. And the first comment I had that was on there for so long and was, did you write your own Amazon review on there too? It
Oh, was it my review?
was your review. Yeah, you had the single review
Totally
up there.
different names.
I
Like,
Yeah. I was like, all right, you got me there.
yeah. That was my like third revision of the review, because obviously being a previous journalist is that I'm used to like deep diving reviews. And I'm like, no, let me just quick, easy review that gets the point across. That, so I'm like, is it worth reading? It's like, oh, they have kids, they should read it. Oh, I don't have kids, should I read it? Oh, I don't have kids, I should read it. It's like, yeah, like,
Save the big
read
one
it.
for Goodreads. people want to unscroll
Yeah,
40
I gotta
paragraphs.
do that too.
All right, there we go.
I know. It's like, here's my 64-page treatment of a review. And it's like, there's so many, like, so when I read books, I kind of like have pictures in my head of it, and like kind
Mhm.
of almost like it acts out like a TV show. And this did kind of work in that sense. With your acting and filming background, could you see yourself even self-producing, like trying your hand at Terror Valley, the series or the
Yes
TV
and
series? I
no.
guess it's series because it's a book series, so it's already a series.
First of all, I don't live in Canada, so I don't get the immediate pass to make one of these. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
you gotta go to Vancouver for that.
Yeah, you can find a young Ryan Gosling to star as Freddy in this.
Just
Um,
film it at the high school from Degrassi, like every other school movie that's filmed in Vancouver.
no, what I really like about this, because we talked about Doctor Who earlier.
Yeah,
Doctor Who has a contest for the audio dramas where if you write one, they will produce it and like put it out there. And I was like, that's such a cool idea. But then I procrastinated too much that I, missed out on it. And I also like wanted to do too much. I was like, nah, this is going over my head, and I didn't do it. And then it passed, and I felt really dumb for not doing it because the one that did win, I was like, that was good. I think mine was
yeah,
better. And that's that's sort of the thing about this is that if I do continue these, if I do make 5, 10, 20 of these, 100, I talked on another interview the other day about like just ideas that I had for books, and so I just sat there and started coming up with like book titles, and I'm over 100 now, so like I have a
oh wow,
hundred potential ideas for books. So like in the larger scale of everything, if I did, it'd be good because I would know, okay, everyone really liked the first one, the second one, the fifth one, and the eighth
yeah,
one. And it's like, boom, there's your first little mini season. Like you kind of
yeah,
get to hand pick which ones you think will be best. And that's kind of like what Goosebumps did too. Whatever was like the best, whatever they could actually film,
yeah,
like Attack the Mutant one got a little wild there by the end.
yeah,
But I don't know if I would personally go at it myself just because like
yeah,
you and I talked a little bit about like film school and everything, and it
yeah,
costs so much money to produce even like a commercial. Like I did commercials back in college where I was um I can share this with you, it's okay. We
yeah,
did a commercial for Tampax, and so we had these feminine hygiene products, and we had to have a hero pad and a competitor pad. And we spent almost 10 hours trying to make this rig that the actor could like put their hands out and you wouldn't see the rig, and then it would like show the pads, and then you had these like two scientific like things that put out the exact milliliter of liquid because our guys back in the lab say 8 milliliter it'll absorb, 9 it'll run too, so you have to do exactly 8 because it'll run on the competitor but not yours. And just like how much time and money went into like a simple commercial. It'd be great if this series took off and I had thousands of dollars. Hell yeah, I would love to see this made. I think this would make a
yeah,
fun episode that you could easily shoot, like thinking of like the standpoint of we're in Miss Tegan's class. We can knock out all of those scenes in this one room, and you have a third of the show done.
yeah.
Like there's
Which
fun
is nice
stuff
because,
about that.
like I said, the book wasn't bloated. You had certain amount of teachers in just certain set places, and every
Mhm.
once in a while, a new place might open up that you weren't there before, which was really nice. And I guess I'll share, like, when I was doing creative writing and filming and stuff, I had to do a commercial also.
Mm.
So my friend was a busboy at this restaurant that did like wedding receptions and like a brunch buffet on the weekends. He's like, yeah, we'll film
Mhm.
the commercial. I'm like, yeah, well, like, what do you have in there we could film a commercial about? He's like, and we just so happened to go there, no script written. We only had a day while they were closed because they were closed on Tuesdays, but they don't get their shipment until Wednesdays. The only thing they had were grapes. So I was like, we have to film a commercial about grapes. I was like, and they're not even seedless, so I already don't like them.
Yeah.
And they're not even green, delicious ones. They're like the red, purplish grapes. I was like, we ended
Mhm.
up
other ones.
and it didn't cost us much, but we had to rent a camera. And luckily it was his own job, but like before we even did that, because that was our last option, because we were like pricing stuff out. And I'm like, dude, like between the camera rig, like we're gonna have to buy the products. If we're gonna destroy them, we're gonna have to buy multiples. And I was like, we're in college, we're already broke, and we're not getting funding. They're just like, hey, go keep it in this time frame, keep it as a product, not a service that you can do a commercial for, because they obviously want us to go more broke. And it was our first assignment. So like I just bought books and like tuition. I was like, thanks.
Yeah, I don't got
And
money for this.
yeah, and this is 2004 too. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't think I'm built for this. I was like,
Oh
I
yeah,
could not
you're
be a
absolutely right.
producer. I could be the writer of the script, but the producer has to worry about the money. The director has to worry about the shots. I could pass. I'm the talent. Like, I don't want to do that stuff.
You
So
got to go
yeah,
after it like Christopher Nolan. Like he did a movie called Following, and how he did that was he filmed like 1 or 2 scenes every weekend for over a year. And so he was able to space out obviously all the shooting, which is really frustrating sometimes, especially as a college student. But also the budget. And it was just him and his friends. So it was basically, pretty free. And
that's better than the Kevin Smith advice. Pretend you're the owner of the job you work at and get like a bunch of credit cards like he did for Clerks, because he does a lot of Q&A stuff. And I remember I went to one. And he was like, yeah, when I made Clerks, I was working at the movie shop, this and that, and I would answer the phone like, yeah, I'm the manager. Yeah, he makes this much money. So he'd get approved for credit cards, and he just maxed out $25,000 on. And when you think about it, single shot camera in a store he already worked at, and that still costs that much money.
Yeah.
So
Best thing about this,
yeah,
continuity. Wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And that's the good thing too. And it's like, but yeah, looking at the production side of things, it's like, and when you think about like how the percentage of people who actually like go on and do something, it's like, yeah, I just want to make a found footage film. That's it.
Speaking of found footage films, I was in one
Yes.
called Gags the Clown, which we talked
It is-
about.
Yeah, we talked before it because for those of you, I did my whole clowns episode 2 years ago because huge fan of clown horror films, and I did not know our guest Squall here was in Gags the Clown, and it is. I still think about that ending with the balloon for the reporter.
Yeah.
Like,
that was
that was such
so fun. The great thing about that is Adam Krause, who did the movie, he's the director. During like 2017, 2016, there was that clown resurgence. And it was because he did a very small picture with these actual teenagers in Green Bay where we filmed the whole movie. And his buddy Eric, who was in the clown suit in both that and the full-length movie, you actually get to see him in that one scene, like where we're messing with that guy in the parking lot. He's like, "Hey man, what the hell?" And he tries to kill me.
okay.
That's the guy in the clown suit. Fun fact. But they did it as like a fun, like little no budget found footage is like the super cheapest way you can go about something.
Yeah.
And then he told his actors, "Hey, share that photo on Facebook as if you were just, dicking around and oh my God, there's a clown. Click." And they did, and they woke up the next morning and it was like being shared in like Finland. Like it had blown up. Like everyone's seen that image of Gags the Clown before that. And he released a little short film and everyone was like, "Oh, it was just a short film." But it costs him less than $1,000. And then he gets all these producers from Chicago that say, "Hey, do you want to make a movie?" And they foot the bill for everything. And it's like,
oh wow,
that doesn't happen to a lot of people, and I'm so glad that it happened to him. It's a fun film.
And it was one of the cool things too, because like I feel like no one capitalized on that whole thing when people were just out standing around and clown. Like no one really capitalized on it. I mean, YouTube style prankster videos, but like no one from like a studio film standpoint was like, we should get on this.
We like to say that we were the group that got the It movies made, that they were in a little bit of developmental hell, and that was the kick in the ass that they need to get that one finished and done and like fully funded. And the bad thing about it was we had finished the movie like 2 weekends before it came out, and the movie itself wasn't available until when the second It movie came out. And I was just like, "Oh, the all of
Yeah.
that, momentum was just."
The missed opportunity of the timing.
Yeah, because they had it edited in, like, a week after we had finished, because we did a whole, like, month of shooting, and they had it all done and wrapped up, and then they, trying to find a group that wanted to buy it, and eventually Bloody Disgusting bought it, which was pretty
Yeah.
cool because I
That
frequented
is,
that
I
website
love.
all the time.
I still do. I'm just like, Bloody Disgusting is like one of the few ones that I'm constantly just like, you guys need a writer? Like,
But, like, it's crazy because you think about the horror resurgence we've had these last few years. One of the people that worked on Gags Clown, she did, like, all the social media and stuff. She directed a movie here in Kansas City called The Stylist that was picked up by Arrow Films, which Arrow, is huge,
yeah,
huge releasers, but it's called The Stylist, and it's all about, like, hair and, like,
yeah,
I don't want to give it away, but like she got that produced and it's like on actual shelves. Like you can go to, like a Best Buy or something. Well, maybe not anymore.
no,
but
yeah, that was a physical. Ugh,
but
sad.
like it's crazy because like you got the Blumhouse. Like, what if Gags had been bought by Blumhouse?
Yeah,
That.
especially where Blumhouse is now. Like, even was it Lionsgate and stuff like that, or Twisted Pictures? Like back with the first Saw, they were indie, and now it takes this like
Yeah.
that one movie, one or two films, and next thing you know, like A24 right now is killing it. I love that company, especially when the strikes were happening. They were one of the first studios to be like,
Hell
whatever,
yeah.
we will meet all the demands for our production. Like if this, and I was like, this is why A24 is such a good company, because and one, they're giving us indie films, they're giving people opportunities, but then they care about the writers, they care about the actors. So those demands, they were like, yeah, we can meet those. We just, if that's what it's going to take, then yeah, no
And
problem.
even like Shutter, like was so great during like
Oh, I
the
love Shutter.
pandemic times. Like the movie Host, which is like the movie that's all on Skype. Uh,
Yeah, was it Jed or Judd who wrote it? Such a
yeah,
nice
yeah.
guy. He's so cool.
Like
That
there's
was
just such a living space for all this sort of content now, and it's weird because like you could walk into like a Walmart and find like all these other movies that are like super low budget trying to rip off whatever MCU is doing and like try to like have like a similar title or something that might catch grandma when she's going to go buy a gift for Christmas. But honestly, like some of those movies like existing out there are really good and need more respect and more love. And it sucks that physical media is going the way that it
yeah,
is because finding some of that is so hard. Like Gags the Clown, almost no one knows about that, right? It's a
yeah,
fine film, it's fine, but like all the other stuff that can kind of come out that like Sharknado,
uh,
that's not that great of a film. It's a funny
it's
meme, but
yeah. That's killing a meme, because the first one was all right. It was
like
and then
Sharknado
it was like they
4.
kept going. I was like, listen, like Sci-Fi Channel, I love you guys because they helped with production for the Chucky series, which is great. But I was like, that's too many Sharknadoes. And then they kind of like really went all in on the memeable, like large monster. They had three-headed shark. Then they had a half shark, half octopus. And then they had sand shark, which actually sand shark's pretty good. Snow shark was horrible. Like they kept going and going, but it's still kind of cool that like, all right, a studio still is like, hey, you got this wacky idea, do it. Go ahead, make it. Let's see what you
Yeah.
can do. Street Sharknado. I hate that. I hate my first day to Comic Con, I went to the Sharknado event and this and that, and I was just like, this is really a thing, isn't it? That they're gonna drag this for a long time.
Lobster
But
Tsunami from the producers
yeah,
of Sharknado.
I know. But yeah, physical. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Best Buy starting the end of Q1 of 2024. No more physical media, but they're still gonna have video games. The Best Buys out here in San Diego, they have literally a little like movie rack, like the gift card rack
Yeah.
by the register, and that's all they have.
Oh my
Um,
god.
yeah, and it's been like that for almost 2 years. I go to thrift stores,
Yeah, same. That's like really all you can.
VHS,
We have
DVD.
vintage stocks out here, but I know like Bull Moose is really good for all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I worked at
and a
Best
lot of
Buy like
studios.
right after COVID when they went from 10 aisles of movies down to 2, and I can't tell you how sad I was because
Yeah, I don't-
my collection. We had a house fire earlier this year, and I lost like 80% of all that. I had every single 4K movie that's ever come out in the United States with a slipcover, and just to lose all that sucks. And I know that you have like certain feelings about digital, but honestly,
yeah,
like I redeemed every single one of my digital codes, and they're all on Voodoo, and now I'm just like, oh yeah, I guess I don't have to rebuy this again. I already have it. So it's kind of like looking at it
yeah,
from the other side, you know?
yeah. There's
I
a
did
catch
lose all
22.
my yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when that happened, I was like, oh, that's like, obviously I was happy I was safe, but I know because, like I said before we live, I was gonna have you on at some point to talk about physical media because preserving physical media, I feel like, is such an important thing because something can be taken out of streaming at any moment.
Right,
And
Disney does
when
it
I
all
saw
the
it, I was like,
time.
yeah, oh, I mean, I was buying Stranger Things on Blu-ray because they're doing the VHS style
I
releases,
have one of
and I was
those,
like, these
yeah.
are cool, but they stopped releasing them after season 2. They
Yeah.
stopped They only did season 1 and 2. They never released the other seasons, and now Disney finally got smart, and they're starting to release the MCU shows on physical
Yeah, but
media,
they're putting them
and I
on
was like,
stupid steelbooks. I'm very passionate about
yeah,
steelbooks.
I I have a love-hate relationship with steelbooks. I get a lot of my horror movies if they have steelbooks available, and that's about it.
Mhm.
Even with like I said, some of the earlier content I saw of yours was the Mill Creek stuff with Ultraman. I didn't go for the steel books because it reminded me of the old VHS tapes. You put a whole bunch of it out, you get the mural. I love
Yep.
that. So I was like, I don't need steel books. I want these. Yeah, they take up a couple more inches of space, but like we go once a month. We'll go. My wife goes almost every day thrifting, where she finds tons of books. She'll find books and DVDs. I go once a month because I guess my stuff's more obscure. Like I found Dogma on Blu-ray,
Dude, that's a big find.
and they
That's
were like, it's
huge.
$90. And they were like $90. I'm like,
Oh,
sold. I know how difficult this is to find, especially with the rights in limbo. No one can really produce it right now. And I'm going by and I'm finding like older, martial arts films, horror films, indie stuff. Like, and I'm just like, yeah, one, if I have enough stuff, I don't need every streaming platform. If I
yeah.
lose internet, I can watch something. If I lose power, boot up the generator. I can have a DVD player, or I have the laptop with a DVD player.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things. It's like I don't. If something gets taken off of streaming, especially if you go every month when 3 days left of the month, anyone can do this. Go type in what movies are leaving and put your streaming platform of choice in there, and look at that list. Now, if they have the exclusive rights to that, guess what? That's not going to be anywhere for you to find. And even Amazon buying digitally earlier this year, they messed up with Comixology. I actually lost a couple $100 worth of my comic book purchases when they messed up everything with Comixology. And these were comics that were too expensive for me to get a physical copy of. Like we're
Mhm.
talking key issues that are like $300 or $400. I'm not made of money. And then now it's like I can't even read those because I lost my digital rights to them because they messed up their deal with Comixology or something. And I'm like,
But get a
I can't
Marvel
rely on
Unlimited, and you can read
Ugh.
all of them.
No, DC was worth it though. DC Universe because they had all the Batman animated series. They made it entice you. Here's comics, here's animated shows, and it's really tough to find Batman Beyond on Blu-ray and stuff like that for cheap. But it's like digital. I have a love hate because I like the idea of streaming. Endless possibilities. I might discover something I never
Right.
knew had. But then if I like it enough, I go buy the physical copy.
It's sort of a mixed bag because you have this huge potential for somebody that is small, like the next Wachowski, the next, Wes Craven, like these small creators that have had a career and then just explode because of one movie. You have that on almost
Yeah.
every streaming platform. Like No One Will Save You. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh my god, that is
Fantastic.
one of my favorite movies of the year. I was gushing over it because I was just like, I don't know who his director is,
Uh-huh.
but I
I was in a
need
movie with the
more.
main actress once. It was called Booksmart. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I don't. I might have. I don't know. I
It's
watched
like
them.
one of their. It's a good film. It's like super bad if.
She she did great too. A whole
Yeah,
movie where there's no dialogue and you
yeah,
still got a backstory. You knew her backstory, the emotion she was going through. You got the tension, which I love, and everything. And I was like, there's no dialogue. I was like, this is one of the smartest, and it's an alien invasion film.
yeah. I wish they would have played up the home invasion aspect a little more, like they were
Yeah,
trying, but they immediately just give it away and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's
yeah,
aliens." I was like, "Ah, that's fine."
yeah.
But
It, but then also the ending of it was just so smart because everyone would be like, oh, I'm not going to spoil it, but like you see, the ending was like the best like possible situation for her,
yeah,
given everything that happened. And I was like, that makes sense. Like this is, I was like, this
they
is a
wanted to get
smart.
none of that smoke from her.
No,
We're done.
yeah, they were just tested like, oh my god, they're like just a trauma dump, and even the aliens like maybe we could pick another planet, like
Yeah,
maybe
beep,
they're like,
beep, beep with their little
yeah,
UFO.
they're just like, yeah, we'll see you later. We're sorry for what we did with the weird things with the mouth, but like we're just gonna leave because you're a bit much.
But you have
It
such a
was,
good amount of that out there, and like even that's kind of a bigger picture too. But
yeah,
was known because it was a smaller picture, and then they're trying to fill these streaming spots. And Hulu's like, yeah, we'll buy this. Oh, 20th Century Fox. They're one of their last movies they put out is Prey. Yeah, we'll
I love
buy
Prey.
this.
Uh,
But like, I think the other issue is that you have so many people that look at it as like, oh, I have a lot of money. You're telling me if I spend $50,000 and make a bad movie, which they probably don't consider it bad, I get I can, like, sell it and make twice my money back? Yeah, sign me up.
I'm glad
And
you
you
brought
just
up Prey. I never been the type where like I need to be represented because like a lot of people I keep. I don't talk about race or anything, but I am like African and I'm Native American.
Mhm.
Prey, I was like, oh my god, I was like, this is like so good. And then I was reading the reviews and people that were bombing it, and I was like, dude, you guys don't understand. I was like, this is like better than Predators, better than The Predator. I was
Yeah.
like, this.
Oh, easily.
I was like, this is well written. The shots, I was like, this like one of my favorites. It shot up the list of the subgenre sci-fi and horror. And
Mhm.
Hulu's been really good at that, especially every year when they do a lot of their like October, they'll bring in a lot of indie horror and like
Yeah.
showcase it in their Hulu Ween and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's what things was like streaming is great for that. I would have probably never because movies are expensive to go see. And
Mhm.
unless a friend recommends it to me and it's someone whose opinion I trust and I know they know what they're talking about, because anyone's a armchair reviewer now.
Yeah.
But if you know, I would have never probably went to go see no one. I would have probably never saw those or Pray. I probably would have never went to theater. It's like, oh, you want me to pay 12.75 times two
Go
plus
see
my
another
popcorn?
Predator movie? Pff,
No,
I've
nope.
seen the last 4. Ugh.
Yeah, it's like nope. I wouldn't have spent money, but it's like seeing on streaming now. I just saw Prey was the number one seller as of today, Friday the 13th on Blu-ray, and I
Mhm.
was like, I didn't even know it came out, so now I'm like, I got to go pick that up.
Yeah,
Like,
Steelbook, though.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
I got a lot of my kaiju films on Steelbook, like Mothra, Godzilla versus
Mhm.
Kong, those ones,
Well,
just because I love the steel.
that's a huge problem is that Best Buy put out a lot of those, like, exclusive steelbooks, so if they're closing up shop on physical media, I mean,
Those are going to
kind of a happy
skyrocket.
dance for me, no more steelbooks, but also,
Yeah,
like, that sucks for everybody else that does enjoy them and collects them because 'cause they're huge for steelbooks, like, I worked at Best Buy, right? And so when we would get those ones in, we would literally pack them up and put them in the manager's office, and nobody could buy them online because he was like, "No, that's bullshit. They have to come in the store."
yeah.
But we would have like 20 people show up when we open on those Tuesdays to come in and get The Shining on 4K on Steelbook.
I have a friend who only collects steelbooks, and I think he had in video games too for steelbooks. So he's
Mhm.
doubling down, and he has almost
Oh,
every steelbook ever released. So everyone's I go to a store, it's a chain, but it's usually in California. I think they're opening up in Florida, and there's one called Book Off. It's a
Book
Japanese
Off,
chain that's in
yeah,
Japan. Yeah, they
yeah.
have a lot in the US. I have two within like a easy driving area distance for me, so I always go to one once a month. I get my
Mhm.
Japanese magazine Toku subscription, and I check. They have a steelbook section now, and I'll send him photos like, "Hey, look at their steelbook section. What do you need from this?" He's like, "I have all those."
Yeah.
Um, and sorry, messages. And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "How do you know? Do you even look it up?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Because I have everything now." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, more power to you. I'm selective in steelbooks, especially physical media. I like a good like spine on a DVD where I could see it. And I feel like I can't tell sometimes because they have that weird tinge to them.
Yeah, that's why slipcovers are so nice, and I just don't get why companies don't always produce them with slipcovers, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
a
especially with the
slipcover
quality of
usually
some of the
denotes like
cases.
what?
Especially the quality of some of the cases, they feel very like thin with the case itself. So a slipcover, I feel like, is like a little protective for it as well.
I used to avoid buying movies from Fox when it was Blu-ray era because they would use the shrink wrap tape up the spine, and so when you rip it off, it's just like a disgusting mess all the way
Yeah.
down it, and it's like, "Is that Mr. Fantastic Fox? Okay, cool." You know? So slipcovers were so nice. Like, I used to get so many weird looks when I would go to a place called Vintage Stock. They'd, like, sell a bunch of this kinda stuff, and I would buy, like, the most random 4K movies, like Divergent, Van Wilder, like, just the most like, "Who's buying these?" And, like, the guy was like, interesting taste." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I just don't have these on 4K with slipcovers
Yeah.
yet.
It's for
I
my
gotta complete
collection.
the collection."
I'm like that with books because for a while they're like, Stephen King card, they'd have the slip covers and either they get damaged because I moved across the country or, when I go thrifting, I would have had them at all. And when I go thrifting now, I'll be like, oh, here's like I was trying to find a freaking Dreamcatcher mint slip cover and I was just at a Goodwill and they had it for 250, the hardcover, and it had the slip and the slip cover is perfect. I was like, cool. Pages were kind of discolored, but I'm like, well, my book's still mint, but I need this. So I bought it just for the slip cover. Then I was like, all right. Around here in San Diego, they have like those little library things where you can just put a book on the side of the road and like the little thing. I was like, I'll go put it in there without the slip cover. Like someone else can enjoy this. I spent 250 for a slip cover. Like it's
No.
important that they're on my books.
I spent $100 on a Ghostbusters 4K slipcover that is now sitting in landfill somewhere. Like, I know how you feel.
I Yeah, that's why also I understand like your frustration. It's like you have them all digital, easy access, but at least it's not going to be removed from a streaming service. But it's like I like something about the physical media. I like especially books, the smell of books. I like
Yeah.
libraries. I like all that stuff. And same with like comic books. I like the era of digital comic books, and I'm like, no, please, like unless it's and a lot of comic books have gone strictly digital only, which kind of annoys me. But I'll support the artist and writer. But it's like I like sitting down away from electronics. We have like a whole library area in our place where we have like the 6-foot beanbag chair and another chair with the electric foot massager
Mhm.
from Amazon and all our bookshelves full. And it's like just sit there, relax. Only thing there's no one outlet plug and it's for the light. No other electronics over there. It's just chill, read, decompress away from the electronics. And that's why I was like physical media so especially books are so important. And I was like, and we're going into that digital era where there's a whole like with Terra Valley, there's a whole generation of kids I see when I go out to because I go to the beach a lot and the parks out here. Parents just have their kids on a tablet and they're 4 or 5 years old, just sitting on a tablet or a phone. And
And seriously, that's like the whole reason why I was like, Amazon's probably the best bet because I also worked at Barnes and Noble. No one has a
yeah,
Nook. No one uses a
I
Nook.
I have a Nook somewhere.
Somewhere, right. I have one
Yeah,
somewhere too, but people are going to use their Kindle, and like especially being able to talk to a lot of kids still in the Kansas City area in elementary, like they do like that. Like schools especially, this is so much easier than this because
yeah,
they used to pay for like 5 or 10 of these, and then the whole school would have a copy, right? And like they could fill their library. Now they can do the exact same thing but they buy more because they need more licenses so that every kid
Uh,
can
yeah.
get these. So it's a little more lucrative to do the
Yeah.
digital for some people
Especially if you
than
do like a little discount on a bulk, be like, oh, how many licenses do you need? We could take a 5 or 10% off of there. It's for the kids, you know.
yep.
So I see the perk of it, especially with kids. Like, of course, they're going to hold their attention more. You hand them a book like this, or you hand them a tablet that has a book on it. Still a vibrant color on the cover, but they're going to grab the tablet.
Yeah.
And
Always.
I'm the type of parent, if I was a parent, I'd be like, all right, well, you have to read the whole entire thing on a tablet before you can open another app. Like, you get through 3 chapters, then you can open another app for a half hour or so. It's like just finding that balance of, but then I don't know. I'm always old school physical media. Like, I could see the appeal, especially being in IT. I get it. I've seen the evolution since I got out of school in 2008. I've seen the evolution of streaming and, DRM with video games. I've now have, with work, I've seen AI and what that can do. And I'm one of the proponents where I could see the positive in AI. I could see how this could help people with disabilities and this and that, and not just from the art standpoint. So I was like, I could see the positive in like everything. And then, but then there's just the old man Mark on a rocking chair on his porch being like, back in my day, we had paper that things were printed on.
Yeah.
It's like, give me my newspaper.
Nobody can afford it anymore.
No.
But
It's
I'm just like you. I do like to have the physical, so having this is still a huge win for me, especially like if you do anything big and creative, just to be able to hold this in your hand. Like the first proof I ever got back, like I teared up because it's so cool to have something that you've poured yourself into, no matter how long or how little, just to be done. And then, to come on something like this and you have a copy of that in your
yeah.
hands,
It's
and that's your
surreal.
copy. Yeah, it's
It,
crazy. Like
I
YouTube is not the
I get
same.
that.
Like
No.
people watch it, but they don't
Yeah.
hold it. Actually, I
Yeah.
did have this one guy who would download my videos and then just watch them all the time. I was
I would say, hey,
I'm on
I
YouTube.
mean, no, that's the thing too. It's like it's one thing. Like I tell everyone, hey, the retweets, the posts, the likes, those are free. But when someone like spends their money, like the first time someone posted a photo on Twitter with one of my shirts, I like lost it. I was like, all right, like, and I just walked away and I showed my wife. I was like, look, it's like, oh, that's your design. I'm like, I know. She's like, I was like, they spent money. Like, I was like, that's. I was like, no, go on your account because she doesn't really do social media. Like, go on your account really quick and peek. Like, that really happened, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not just and then I saw through the app like this, and I'm like, man, like, it's humbling
It is.
drastically. It's like because you can sit there and be like, oh man, I put something out good, this would be great, but then it's like, oh crap, people are actually. Then it's also they're spending their money on. Oh god, what if they don't like it when they get it now? Like, damn it, it's a double edged sword, but it's so cool, like from a creative standpoint, like to actually see. Which is why I was happy to buy the book. I was like, no, I pre-ordered it when you put it up. I was like, listen, good or bad, I'm gonna let you know what my opinion is, but like at the same time, it's like I'm gonna support you. I want to see this journey. That's why when I tweeted, I was like, you are definitely an author. Like that has to
Thank
be in
you.
every bio. Author first thing if you go in alphabetical order, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really cool to see, especially the journey, because we were joking before, like I didn't know two and two. Yeah, oh, you're in Gags the Clown, but then it's like also I didn't know a lot of stuff you've done that I've just like, oh yeah, no, there that the like the Shout Factory stuff. I didn't put that two and two together with any of the other stuff either, and it's
Mhm.
like just so I was like, Loki's been flying under the radar, just there for 5 years, and I'm like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, just been around doing whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's just a true testament of like what I like doing is just like like you can tell a person by where they know me from, you know?
Yeah, and I think also it's easy to fall into certain like niche areas. Like I'm going through my own like internal conflict with Toku right now because this wasn't where I wanted to land. Like
Yeah.
I have my background blurred, but it's like I have a whole wall of horror figures. I have manga, I have anime, then it's like I have some Toku. I'm into comics and movies and sci-fi. And it's like I really fell in one niche, and I'm like, damn. It's like, but there's more. There's more layers. There's more to it. That's why I was like, when you wrote the book, I was like, I was never like, even when I joked, I was like, I'm gonna have you on to talk physical media because enough people talk to me about Toku. I don't. I'm burnt out on it. I did a whole video. I'm like, hey guys, I'm burnt out. Like, let me just work on some like stuff I want to work on. Like, I'm
Mhm.
just tired of the same conversations. Let me just watch some horror. Let me read some books. Let me have some other conversations for once.
I had a Discord for Toku, and like it was great just being in the voice chat and talking to
Yeah.
people, and like we would do that like almost every night for hours. But the moment they started actually talking about Toku, I wanted to
Yeah.
scream so badly because it's
Oh, yeah.
always the same conversations.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
I almost
come
blamed
on.
you for the superhero time thing because that almost got me back into do because like I wrote some of the candy stuff on there and that almost got me back into full-time journalism again to the point where like I still have my credentials and I was hitting up some conventions and I was like, hey, and so like around that time, because it's months and months in advance, I put in for New York Comic Con at press. I was like, just because I like to write stuff, Ultraman's gonna be there, super. Maybe I'll write something because we didn't know what you were gonna do a superhero time, and I got proved. They still
Ooh,
approved me. And I was like,
hey,
no, I can't. Because
no, just you should have.
nah, it's so expensive to fly across the country
Oh,
right
I
now.
guess yeah, you're in
Yeah,
college.
we were just there last year for our honeymoon in New York, and I was like, I was like, I can't do cities. Like, I live in San Diego, but I moved to the mountains. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just can't do congested areas. But it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, knowing people from different, like, where they know you from. Like, now everyone knows me because, like, one time I got hungry on a stream and I ate some pickles because I didn't want to cook on stream. And now everyone's requested, hey, you ate the pickles. I'm like, oh, God damn. I was like, yeah, they're delicious. They're 0 calorie. And they're like, are you gonna do a pickle ASMR? I'm like, is that really what you know me from? Like one live stream I was on where I ate some pickles. I was like, I do have more, but that's besides. But it's like, and then some people know me from when I did game journalism, which was a whole nother rebrand that wasn't even a nerd name mark. Like I was going under my real name. I was writing for different outlets, and it's like all these different places. So some people are like, oh yeah, you were the person talking about Saber every week for a year. More power to you. And then other people are like, oh, you like Blade, and then other people are like, oh, you're the guy who like collected all those Godzilla toys, or you're the old dude in the Grandpa Toku. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then, but it's great that no one recognizes me because I can go to conventions and like Power Morphicon, this and that. And no one is like, is that Mark? It's like, no, just me and my
Yeah.
wife walk. No one. She's like, oh, do you know those people? Like, yeah, from YouTube, but I'm not gonna say hi because I don't care. I want to buy stuff and get photos.
Last PMC I was at, I was in an elevator with a few of my friends and this one guy who had just come back from the shop, like the floor, and he had a Power Rangers Wild Force Isis Ranger Megazord in his bag. And I looked at it and I was just like, ooh, bad naming convention, looking back at it, and he goes, yeah. And he it's like, oh my god, are you Squall? I was like, yep, and I immediately just ran out of the elevator.
Yeah. You're like, how'd you know? You hit all the buttons before you leave, so you can't guess what floor it is. It's like, nope, I'm out. Yeah, I get and it's funny too because it's like it doesn't sink in that people would like know, like we all know each other on social media. It's about like to have someone really be like, you don't know, be like, hey, you're this person. It's like,
No, okay, so I lived out in LA for a little bit, for Power Ranger auditions and whatever, and
yeah.
obviously that went really well. No. Um,
Listen, I lived in Pasadena. I understand completely. I didn't pay for anything.
and I had a friend from I used to live in Minnesota. I had a friend visiting, and I was telling her, like, yeah, everywhere I go, like, at least once a month, someone will be like, "Hey, I know you from YouTube or from, like, Funhouse or something else, that I've done," and I'm like she wouldn't believe me. She was like, "No, shut up. No, that doesn't happen. Stop lying." And what the hell is that? And literally,
I don't know.
we I think it's on my end. Like, I did an interview the other
Okay.
day and, like, balloons came up.
Oh,
Uh, and she was like, "Nah, you're lying. That never happens." And I shit you not, the bookstore we were in, some guy like took his headphones off and turned around. He was like, "Oh, I thought that was you. I recognized your voice." I was like,
He's like,
Take one of
see,
these.
it does happen. It's
Yeah.
like, and I think I don't. When I was doing a lot of video game stuff, I was always like, I don't like being in front of the camera. This is still new to me. This is only a couple of years of me, like maybe since 2021, me being on the camera. Even when I used to do like interviews in 2012, 2013, they used to put me in front of a camera with the stupid mic with a little cube around it, and I hated it. And I was like, no charisma. Like, I was a writer, put me behind the camera. And I remember because I was with a friend of mine, and I'm really good at PR, so I made friends with a lot of PR people. And I would go up to the booth and be like, "Oh yeah, no, I got a scheduled time." And they'd look at it, they're like, "Oh, you're Mark?" Like, yeah. And they're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, we talk in emails all the time." That's not my friend's like, "Dude, you just know the PR people." I'm like, well, I don't send emails when I want something. I'm asking how their day is. I'm building rapport. Like, I
Mhm.
used to be friends with someone who was a publisher for an indie studio. Next thing you know, they're the head PR for EA Sports.
Mhm.
And then next thing you know, they move on, and now they're like, "Oh, I'm over at Harmonix. You want Rock Band? I can send you Rock Band a review." And I'm like, "No, it's fine. I already pre-ordered it. Like, but I appreciate it. I'm still gonna review it." Like, and I told him, I was like, "Yeah, it's weird, but it's like I never see. I don't know their faces because we're in email, and it's just that. But to have someone be like, 'Oh, you're Mark. Oh, yeah,' and then someone be like, 'Oh, wow, they just know you.' It's like, yeah, it's a weird feeling still.
Yeah.
10, 15 years later, but." I don't want to take any more of your time up. Uh, and do you want to plug? We obviously got to plug Terror Valley. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything else you want to say about the book? By the way, everyone, just go buy the book. Just go buy it. Buy it digital. Buy it physical. Physical media is important. Like, look at the colors.
It's pretty. And if you go and you buy it right now, the copy you will get right here will have one of those fun little goosebump catchphrases that
Nice.
I had on like the rough draft that I made, but I don't know how after like 19 other revisions with the final art that I forgot to put it back. But it's there now and you can order it now. Um,
I'm about to order it now. I'll just consider it a variant cover because that's how I convinced myself to buy more comics.
honestly, if you think about it, yeah, like you can tell just by the back like what edition you got. Like look at the barcode. The barcode's different now too. Like it's fun. Hold on one second.
We're gonna get a lot of different ones. That is.
Like here's one of
I
the
was gonna
other
talk to you.
earlier copies that I have. You can see how the skull looks better centered on this because I had to change it. It's better and centered now. I don't know how centered yours is, but
Mine's off to the right more, so it's
okay.
less
It looks more like
centered.
this again.
Yeah,
And like you can see that band. Like
yeah. I
so much
see
has
for
changed.
the that
This
is
one isn't mine. Amazon throws that on the do not sell
yeah.
ones. But
That's pretty neat. Yeah. So yeah, if you go buy it now, you guys are gonna get a cool new edition of the cover, and then
and
leave
that's what I
reviews for
love
it.
about this is like you go and you like produce this anywhere else, like you go through like a book baby or you go and print off your own copies for like thousands of dollars. You're gonna have 1,000 of these that you're gonna hate
Yeah.
because you're like, damn it, why did I forget the caption there? But Amazon gives you
No,
that.
is
It's
it like a
super
print?
sweet.
Is it like a print on demand for those? Because I got this quick. I got this like in less than 2 days from
Yeah.
when I placed the order.
I believe it's up in I think they have different facilities, but I know the one closest to me is in Illinois. But yeah, they have it on file, and literally what they
Actually,
do is
oh,
they get
Vegas.
it in.
That's why I got it so quickly. It says on
Oh
the
yeah,
back page where I printed. I was like, oh, Vegas. Yeah, that's why, because that's a 6 hour drive for me. So, because I
yeah,
ordered it
Illinois.
that on the 6th, and it was said it was going to be 2 days, and I got it delivered like the next day at like 7 o'clock at night, and so it was
Nice.
less than 24 hours. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's quick.
Yeah,
That's
I
actually pretty neat for print on demand.
yeah, it's super cool. But if you like scary books, if you have someone young in your life that you think would enjoy something that's more than just scares and thrills, this is a book that you probably want them to check out. And who knows? The more people that check this out, the more I will do, and Terror Valley might just continue growing, and we'll see.
That's
But
the hope and
yeah,
the dream, and I hope that does actually happen. Also, you should pick up the book if you've ever been in 5th grade. I mean, obviously. So, like, we mean, there you go. That's the demographic. Have you been in 5th grade, or are you in 5th grade?
there you go.
I mean, that's easily a couple hundred people, I think, that have been in 5th grade. So,
I mean, fourth grade can be rough for some
yeah,
people, and then
I
like
get it.
drop out immediately. But
Around the time
most tough it out.
you start learning cursive, which is really just lost art. Also, who really
Yeah,
knows cursive anymore? I mean,
and who really wants it? It's so sloppy. You can't read it because
you know,
handwriting has gone out the
fun
window. But
fun
anyway,
fact. Fun fact before I end the episode, I big into writing this and that, and I love typewriters. I actually have a typewriter that only types in cursive.
oh,
It is the craziest thing ever.
so
And
they must have different cap keys for like everything. Does it connect too?
yeah, it connects to everything, but you can only do cursive on it.
No, I mean like the letters, like like cursive, kind of like it's fluid.
When you type they
Oh,
all connect. Yeah, it's
that's neat.
crazy. And it's not a normal typewriter because it folds up into like the briefcase. So you have to lift it
Yeah.
up. You can't take it out of it either. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I just
You got to open it
got it.
up and
I got it at like a tag sale when I was a kid because I like typewriters and I liked writing on them. And that's how I did my homework, to be kind of like that suck up in class. I was like, I'm gonna type up everything. And then before computers were, oh my
yeah.
god, I'm old. Before everyone had a computer in their home, and I was just like, and I still have it. It's like the coolest thing ever. And yeah,
That
no,
sounds
5th
really
grade
cool.
was tough. Cursive.
Yeah.
Do you want to plug any socials, any channels? I know you have the Terror Valley YouTube channel as
So we
well.
do have a YouTube channel. We're just gonna upload a few things there. I'm thinking about doing an audiobook, but I'm not fully sure. Um, we'll see. We might do stuff on there, but not nearly as big as like what I used to do on my own channel. But we'll
Yeah.
still upload there. You can find us over on Twitter or X, I guess, whatever the hell they call it now, at Terror Valley Books BKS, and you can follow me on the same place at Squall Charlson without the space.
Nice. And all that will be obviously in the description below, as well as a link to buying the book digitally or physically, because I'm consistent with, remembering things. Plus, this is my editing note for me to put that in the description below so I don't forget. I thank you. This has been great. I like I said, I was like, I don't want to take any more time because I could talk literally 4, 5, 6 hours about books,
Oh, wow.
physical media. But thank you so much. And also, one more time, congratulations on Terror Valley
Thank you.
1. School's out for never. Go pick it up right now. That is it for the episode. You'll probably see some outro stuff where I do all the housekeeping, but I don't want to do that right now because I'm just don't want to.